Hello guys, this is part 3 of What If Naruto x Orochimaru. Hope you enjoy and like and subscribe. Chapter 5. Represent. Do you have enough clothes? Yes. Enough water? Yes. Weapons? Yes, and yes. I have enough of everything, Naruto said while rolling his eyes in faux annoyance. Truthfully, he liked the attention, and that someone worried enough about him to do all of this. But Tsunade's and Jiraiya's snickering was of no help at all. Shizune looked at her little brother figure, as if to weigh the truth of his words. She's aware he dabbles in sealing and likely has his equipment there, but he's going to a foreign village in a desert. She feels right to worry. Oink. Taunton says while squirming in Shizune's arms. I won't forget, Tan-chan, Naruto said. Alright, brat, go kick some ass. Also, see if you can get some action going, Tsunade said, slipping him some ryo. Tsunade-sama, that's improper. Shizune scolded and Tsunade just waved her off. Naruto took the money and shot her a wink, no sense in not buttressing his income for the Sasani mission. When Orochimaru Shishu informed him he'd be fighting Gaara, he was less than enthused. Especially not in Suna, a place with an excess of sand. He still believes he can beat his Suna counterpart, but he truthfully has little interest in him. Whatever Suna did to Gaara, they broke him, and he's more mad dog than shinobi. What value is there in victory over a beast? Naruto's team had said their goodbyes the night before as they had a mission scheduled for today. Kurenai, like Shizune, ran down the list of things he needed to bring, and ordered him to stay properly hydrated. Shikamaru wished him luck through a series of troublesomes, and Shino bade him fair travels. The last person he was to speak to was the person that had been training him non-stop for the previous month. Naruto hadn't added much to his ninjutsu arsenal, but he had improved on utilizing them. His lava and ice jutsu still took too much time, and lacked proper control to be field ready, but Orochimaru was confident it would come with time. His mornings started with a workout, and then a spar with Kimimaro. He has come to like the stoic boy, even if said boy calls him Akagami instead of his name. Though as far as nicknames go, it is pretty benign. From there he'd eat and then start on his instruction from Orochimaru. More than anything, she was preparing him to face the Akatsuki members, and while he couldn't match their power, he could out-strategize them with her knowledge of their abilities. Various scenarios were covered for each of the known members, and some tentative plans were created. He'd have to develop some more jutsu to handle them, but he was confident he'd be as ready as he could be when the time came. After the study session she'd work on his various skills, helping him grow more comfortable with his mother's kenjutsu style or other things like predicting behavior from body language. She even started teaching him some of her hibi style, though he'd have to get much more flexible to really incorporate it. That would usually go on until late afternoon, and he was free for the evening. He'd spend an hour absorbing the information from his shadow clones, learning from the materials his mother stored in their vault, which was really just a sealing array that could be accessed from multiple points if you knew the array and had the right chakra signature. Once he'd done that and meditated, he'd release the resistance seals as he only wore them during the day or when training, and go visit his team or spend time with Tei and Karen. The three finally decided on a design for their house future compound, and it would be located by the mask storage temple. Because of the security seals Naruto planned to incorporate along with some other features, the building would take a while, but it'd be worth it when it was all said and done. It had been a good month all told. He was gaining experience, refining his skills. Yep, everything was good. Except the repeated sex dreams he was having about Orochimaru. They didn't happen nightly, but each time got more graphic, and making eye contact with her the next morning was incredibly awkward for the Uzumaki. The only reason he managed to do so was out of fear, where his traitorous eyes might drift to, if left to their own devices. He didn't want to piss off a Sannin, especially not one that literally knew where he slept. But ignoring his burgeoning sexual awakening, it was a good month. I expect you to win, Orochimaru relayed while stroking his whiskered cheek. He fought back the knee-jerk reaction that came from people doing that, something he hadn't learned until Shizune did it after his mission to Ishval. Baddest ninja do not purr. He just knew his father wouldn't and he'd be no different. Hi, was the muted response. And don't do anything perverted with Jiraiya. Hi. After ruffling his hair she walks away confident her apprentice will handle the Kazekage's son. Well, brat, we need to go. Jiraiya spoke then took off. Alright. Bye everyone, Naruto exclaimed and waved while catching up with the Gama Sannin. Orochimaru soon arrived to Hiruzen's office as she was to be assigned a mission. It was his justification for why she could not travel to Suna with her student. She found the thought amusing, until Kabuto arrived with an Anbu escort looking worse for wear. That wasn't amusing in the slightest. Both former traitor and former spy entered the Hokage's office to see Kakashi, Guy, and Asuma also there. Sensei. Orochimaru. We need to start the transition to making Oto a true protectorate of Konoha. I'm sending my top jounin with you to get the necessary information, including a full roster of your employed ninja and any projects you may have. I expect you back in a week's time. Is that all? Yes, leave within the hour. Hi. The group of 5 departed, each going to prepare their things, and the Jounin sensei going to inform their students they'd be gone for a week. Orochimaru waited until they were alone, before she asked Kabuto how he was and what happened. He assured his mistress that it was a simple interrogation, nothing extreme. He wouldn't betray her for the leaf. He holds no love for the village nor the man that allowed that monster Danzo to trick his mother into trying to kill him. No, Konoha could never have his loyalty. I knew this would happen eventually. Good thing I ordered Gurren to end my existing experiments. The snake Sannin said, causing Kabuto to readjust his glasses, a tick she noticed. Speak, Kabuto. I just don't know why we had to end our work, Orochimaru-sama. We could have been close to some outstanding breakthroughs. Or not, and it would jeopardize my position here for little gain. We'll start back up eventually, it's merely a short-term loss. He adjusted his glasses again. What, Kabuto? Nothing, Orochimaru-sama. Guess I was just invested in those experiments more than I realized. Understandable. She spoke and the two remained quiet. I found his team at their normal training grounds, all 3 working separately. It had only been 2 weeks since Niji got his prosthetic arm, but Guy could tell the boy was beyond relieved. He was happy, his team had been made whole and were working harder than ever, youthful flames indeed. What concerned Guy is that much of their focus was not on enemy Nin but a comrade, one Uzumaki Naruto. He understands why. Naruto battered Niji and Lee's bodies, he also damaged their collective pride. They assumed they were the strongest genin in the village, and rightfully so as Naruto was a genin in name only. But their defeats, the maiming and near murder, are forever etched in their memories. On one hand, Guy wants to help them get over their near hatred for Naruto. By shinobi standards he did nothing wrong and they need to understand this, especially as Sandaime-sama orders them to participate in the AIM invasion. They may have to work with Naruto, be led by him, and there wouldn't be time for squabbles, when real enemies are afoot. It may cost them their careers or their lives. But there is another part of him that wants them to keep this drive as it may leave them to be as prepared for what is coming as anything else. It's a fine line and the normally boisterous Jounin is at a loss of what to do. Yosh, my youthful students fallen, he shouted and awaited for them to do as instructed. Once they did, Guy proceeded to tell them of his mission to Odo, and that he'd be gone for a week. He instructed them to continue their training, and he'd see them soon. Wait, sensei. Is it Orochimaru the Uzumaki bastard sensei? Is he going as well? Asked Tenten. No, Naruto has been assigned another mission in Suna. It appears the youthful Kazekage desires to see the match that would have been the Chunin exam finals. Oh, well I hope he isn't grievously injured by that lunatic. Tenten replied. It would be a shame if such a fate befell him. Niji rejoined. Your intentions are unyouthful, my students. He is a comrade and you do well to remember that. Now I must be off. Guy spoke before disappearing in a swirl of leaves. Asuma was also informing his students of his upcoming departure and instructed them to get extra training in with their clans in his absence. Telling them to train together is a waste, 2 of them won't bother, and the 3rd won't do anything to force the issue. His team is a mess and the should-be leader is becoming more and more disconnected from the rest. Hinata respects him, if sometimes grudgingly. He is man enough to admit that's his fault, he was too lax when they first formed. He had his reasons, it wasn't simply out of laziness, but given the existing dynamics, he should have been more forceful to start. But what's approaching, Asuma knows there isn't a chance in hell his team will be activated to participate. The only one even remotely close is Hinata, especially after she revealed her skills in archery. Such a long-range threat can't be dismissed. She's got the combat skills to be Chunin, but the leadership qualities haven't shown themselves, and he hasn't any clue on how to bring them out. His other charges just need to get bloody and mature. None of their C ranks have gone awry, so they have a false sense of what this life can entail, even for clan kids. He realized this during the Chunin exams, but hasn't been successful in getting them to transition. He'd have to amend that soon. Asuma dismissed them after relaying his orders. Hinata, hang back. Yes, sensei. Hinata, I'm going to be blunt. This team is a mess. And it's a mess because of 2 of its members. Like to guess which 2? Ino and Shoji-kan would be the obvious answer, but I'm guessing they'd be too obvious. Yes, it's us. I should have been on you guys from the start, that's my fault, and I will be rectifying it when I return. But you? You should be this team's leader, but you're content to just hang back and let the others continue on when you know better. Why? I don't want to be a leader. Interesting position for an heiress. Don't want to be that either. Then what do you want? Hinata snorted. That's an excellent question, sensei. Kakashi arrived to his team's training ground and watched as Kiba played with Akamaru, as it wasn't really training. Sakura sat under a tree staring at Sasuke, and Sasuke looked off into the void. He held back aside his team. Kakashi knows depression. He's suffered through it, battled it and frankly felt he's lost to it more times than not, so he knows Sasuke even getting out of bed is a triumph. Losing your purpose, that is almost indescribable. He sympathizes with the last Uchiha, and has ordered him to see a professional to help. It hasn't been long so there aren't much in the way of results, but Sasuke didn't fight him on it, so he'll take it. Kiba would be fine, he has his family and his partner, but Kakashi would remain diligent, so the Inizuka doesn't become one-dimensional. Sakura Gotti didn't know what to do with Sakura. No branch of the shinobi art seemed to grab her. Jinjutsu. She could do a few, but the creativity and subtlety required to truly excel in the art. She didn't have it, and didn't want to develop it. Jujutsu. She could do it, and her brief tenure at the hospital during the Chunin exams break seemed to spark an ember, but the experienced Mednans found her ambivalence distasteful. Fair or not, they expected a certain level of zeal if you engaged in the healing arts. Taijutsu. If he made her, and he did make her. Ninjutsu. With her reserves, he'd almost be killing the kid if he pushed her too hard. She was good for her level, her skills were solidly genin, and he didn't know how to push her forward. My cute genin, I have news. All three stopped what they were doing and looked at Kakashi, making no move to actually come toward him. He'd have to work on their discipline as well. Sure, he didn't really portray any, but he was a former Anbu and an elite Jounin, the rules were different for him. They'd have to earn their disrespect. I've been assigned a week-long mission to Odo. Please keep up with your training while I'm gone. Seeing nods, he departs, keenly aware that the little bastards didn't even say goodbye. If Naruto were here, he'd say goodbye. It was the day after Naruto and Orochimaru departed that the two newest Uzumaki of Konoha were walking around the village with Majila. Naruto wasn't taking her to Suna, and she didn't want to return to her realm, so Karen and Taiya agreed to watch her. Karen was currently carrying said cub. This was necessary, but Majila loved to be carried, and Karen loved soft cuddlesome things, so it was working out. Taiya repeated rolled her eyes at the pair, but made no mention of their behavior, long grown accustomed to her cousin's quirks. Both were probationary genin, fitting for Karen and utter bullshit for Taiya if you asked her. She also felt her rank was reflective of her previous association than any real assessment of her skills, but she'd let it ride for now. The old man would be replaced soon enough, Orochimaru informed her, so there was no need to quibble about rank. She still didn't like the Sandaime, his facade of the kind grandfather felt fake and manipulative. Knowing what he did to Naruto, someone she had come to sorta like, just cemented her opinion of the man as someone to always be on guard around. The trio were looking for to have lunch. Some of the village's establishments were called in their reception of the two Uzumaki, so options were limited. Neither knew if it were the Orochimaru connection or the Naruto one, or some combination of the two, but it was real. However, they were never rude enough to be called on it, causing Taiya to consider them cowards. If you have something to say, she felt, you should say it and stand on your words. The Uzumaki and summon settled on a sushi restaurant that serves them and leaves them in peace, none of the staff batting an eye at the inclusion of the panther cub. The restaurant had the choice between a counter service or sitting at a booth. The girls selected a corner booth, as to not draw attention to themselves, no more than the talking animal would anyway. The three sat down, and were enjoying their meal, before they were interrupted by two Kunoichi. Ino Yamanaka was a gossip. She'd admit as much with no shame. Her parents encouraged this as they felt it would passively increase her information-gathering skills. The problem was they never reinforced limits nor boundaries. This made Ino come off like a nosy busybody with no respect for other people's private information. So, when she saw the two Reddit Kunoichi sit at a booth, she knew they were from the newly recognized clan. The clan that had a former classmate as its head. But she didn't know much outside of that, and could not accept such an oversight. So without all the unearned confidence that youth provides, Ino approached the table. Karen, being a censor, noticed the two Kunoichi approaching first. She didn't feel any hostility coming from them, but was still ill at ease with them. Taiya soon picked up on it as well but continued eating, confident if the two wanted trouble she'd give them all they could handle, and then some. Majila was enjoying her meal, and not really concerned about anything else. Hi, I'm Ino Yamanaka and this is Sakura Haruno, who might you be? She said, making an introduction. Karen. Taiya. Majila kept eating. Are you guys new to the village? I haven't seen you around before. Yes. Taiya answered tersely. Where are you from originally? Ino continued, hoping to get them to open up. Why? Asked Karen. I just want to get to know you. We don't have a lot of Kunoichi around our age, and thought maybe you guys could be our friends. No, that'll never happen. Taiya replied. Why? Sakura spoke for the first time, confused by the antipathy of the girls. Taiya patted Majila on the head to get her attention. Who are these girls, Mags? Taiya asked. Oh, they were classmates with Oni-chan before he graduated ahead of him. The blonde one told the pink one not to be his friend because he was bad. Ino and Sakura both looked down in shame. May not have known shit headlong, but we both know enough to not to want to associate with someone who would do that to our clansmen. Taiya rejoined. I was 6. I didn't know Naruto, but everyone said he was bad. Don't care. Ino was speechless at the dismissal, turning to walk away in disbelief. Sakura followed her, and both girls departed from the restaurant. Ino hadn't thought about how she'd met Sakura in years, the two having a falling out some years ago, and only now, after graduation, had they started to mend their severed bond. As an admitted gossip, it never really dawned on Ino how curious she'd been about Naruto until recently. She'd readily believed the schoolyard consensus, that he was a bad child, and the reactions from her academy sensei did nothing to disabuse her of that notion. Not even after he graduated, as many assumed he simply dropped out. Not until he wound up on Team 8 did anyone even think or mention him, and learning he'd been on the reserves for 3 years made everyone assumed he was just a dead last. Shikamaru tried to tell her differently, but Ino chalked it up to him not wanting the taint of Naruto's ineptitude. After the Chunin exam prelims, Ino was shocked at Naruto's skill with his sword, but hadn't been overly impressed with his opponent, so really thought nothing of it. Him breezing through the finals and being acknowledged as a clan heir are what finally stoked Ino's interest in the Redeed. Shikamaru was no help, he wouldn't divulge anything about his teammate, and when she asked why he just muttered troublesome and walked away. She never spoke to Shino and hadn't been willing to change that, not even to find out dirt about someone. And now, she'd been shut out by his clan members, as her previous childishness was thrown in her face. Sakura's thoughts mirrored Ino's. She remembered asking the chubby cheek Redeed to not bother her because he was bad. She remembers, vaguely, how hurt her looked, but he never attempted to speak to her again. Even during the few joint team functions he made no effort to talk to her, or acknowledge she was even there. She never minded it as most of her attention was dedicated to Sasuke. She knew Kakashi-sensei had some kind of previous relationship with him, having mentioned Naruto a time or two, but it was clear he thought highly of the rookie Chunin. Apparently, his opinion of her was so negative that his clan members wouldn't even consider her someone worth knowing, if for no other reason than to get their own impression of her. That made her angry. The two Uzumaki continued to enjoy their meal, both with smirks on their faces. Truthfully, Teiya didn't give two shits about occurrences of childish groupthink. When Majula relayed the information on some of the girls of note around Naruto's age, even she made it clear that, while Naruto was hurt initially he simply focused on developing himself. It wasn't some long internalized personal slight. They didn't want to know him, so he just learned to not care. However, orders were orders. To Teiya's interpretation, Orochimaru-sama ordered her, and Karen to keep any too curious, or openly interested cunt away from Naruto. And she would, as well she may like Naruto she fears, and respects Orochimaru-sama, and wouldn't betray her. Karen wouldn't either. 2 days later found the team for Konoha outside the walls of Odo. Odo was interesting, in that it looked like Konoha. The buildings were not built as tall but you wouldn't know it was a shinobi village from the look. And that was by design. The real shinobi affairs happened in the underground facilities, and they were numerous. Asuma was awed by it all. The labyrinth of tunnels and subterranean levels was impressive and confusing. The Odo ninja were professional enough, but there was a clear tinge of fear as Orochimaru walked past. Asuma had not wanted to go on this mission. Not even a little. He, like Jiraiya, had always been jealous of his father's relationship with Orochimaru. How his father praised her natural genius, almost in contrast to criticism in Asuma's lack thereof. He hadn't known why his father suddenly distanced himself from his student, but clearly something had happened. He's always been uncomfortable around each of the Sannin, feeling they were the children his father truly wished he'd had. It may have been immature and incorrect, but it's how he felt. His father allowing Orochimaru to flee after her crimes just solidified that for him. They were, simply, held to a different standard. It was unfair and maddening. So, he really didn't want to be here. Didn't feel he needed to be here, but when he recalled Kurenai's worries over the Snake Sannin's designs on Naruto, he changed his mind. Deciphering the schemes and plots of Orochimaru is likely impossible for anyone with a less than genius intellect, and some knowledge of how her mind works, but any information would be better than none. And given how her village looked, Asuma was confused as to why she'd want to come back. Only a handful of Konoha shinobi could be a threat to her, so it couldn't have been the missing nin status. But it couldn't have just been Naruto, Asuma thought. Hoped, actually. The 4 Konoha nin entered an office, and Orochimaru was immediately greeted by the woman sitting at the desk. The office was planned, some shelving throughout with books and file folders. 2 chairs on the opposite side of the desk the woman was sitting, and the desk was large, but not overly ornate. Not what the Konoha team expected from Orochimaru. Orochimaru-sama, the woman said, while getting up. No need to get up, Guren-chan. Do you have all the information these upstanding Konoha jounin require? Hi, there are copies for each in their rooms. Efficient as always. Well, gentlemen, I'm sure Guren has arranged for someone to show you to your rooms. I have other things to see to, so I'll see you when we depart. What if we have questions? I'm sure Guren-chan can help you with whatever you need, Asuma. She said as she exited the office. The 3 men waited for their guide, and once he arrived, they too left from the office. Orochimaru was pleased to see most of her experiments had been more or less erased. It'd take time for that to happen at all of her bases, but Kimimura was on the job, and with Yugo and Sujetsu aiding him, it shouldn't take long. She knew her sensei would attempt to find something, anything that would upend her agreement with the daimyo. She prepared for that and other eventualities. He was so far behind the game he'd never be able to take the initiative. She wished she could take more credit for engineering his fall from grace, but it just so happens her schemes and Tsunade's actions coincided, but she had her part so it was enough. Once removed from power he wouldn't be a complete non-threat, but he'd certainly be a far less formidable one. She sometimes wondered if his disgrace was enough. Every member of a clan would know so non-clan shinobi made through gossip, but had it gone far enough? Could he stand to lose more, she wondered. Kabuto had reported that Hiruzen and Asuma were getting closer, rebuilding their fractured relationship. Why should she allow that? Why should she allow him any comfort? No, his life was to be one of mounting indignities until they crushed him or he died. She knew what she had to do. Asuma had been thoroughly going over the information provided to him, taking special care to not burn any of the documents as he smoked. He appreciated that the room had seals that absorbed smoke. A queen-size bed, a desk and his own personal bathroom. Not much, but he's had worse accommodations, certainly. He stopped reading when he heard the knock at his door and answered it, palming a trench knife behind his back. One he gripped even more tightly when he saw who was at the door. Can I help you? Kukuku, I was hoping we could talk for a bit. Is that okay, Asuma-kun? He wanted to say no, but realized her asking was just out of politeness, so he opened the door fully and allowed her in, sliding his knife back in his holster. What can I do for you, he said, walking back to the bed. Orochimaru stayed standing facing him. I'm curious about you, Asuma. I've known you for years, but I don't really know you. What makes you tick? What gets you up in the morning? Why did you join this mission? I have no idea about any of it. I highly doubt that. I'm sure someone of your genius could read me like an open book, he said between drags of his cigarette. Kukuku, you flatter. Smooth just like sensei. How are things going with Mizuhi? That would be private and why would you care? Why wouldn't I? She's Naruto-kun's sensei so her life may affect his. Just concern for your student. Is it not enough? Would you like me to be interested in you, Asuma? No, I'm fine. One woman is more than enough for me. Sensei used to say that, until he didn't. What's that supposed to mean? Look, Asuma, you'll do what you want to do, but if you leave Yuhi-chan distraught that may negatively impact Naruto-kun, and I can't have that. If you're just going to run around then find someone else. For once be better than your father. Are you saying my father had an affair behind my mother's back? Yay, right. Not the Honorable Saratobi Hiruzen. Not in 1,000 years. You sure about that? Positive. And if he had, there's no way he'd let you know about it. Unless. Asuma sat and squinted at the Sannin until the lights switched on. No, I don't believe. I will never believe that. You don't have to, he's not why I'm here. Just be responsible and if not, at least don't force her to abort the baby. Be better than your father in that regard. Orochimaru spat and vacated the room. She grinned all the way down the hallway. She'd be blunt, and she knew Asuma's instincts would tell him she was attempting to manipulate him, pit him against his father for some reason. He wouldn't allow that, but she didn't need him to be disloyal, just distant. He may serve his father, but he wouldn't trust him, not for a while. Unless he can fully convince himself his father is innocent, Asuma will at the very least have doubts, and that small seed is enough. She's already won, again. The sun had only recently set, and yet the temperature change was immediate. Suna, especially at night, was beautiful. Not the same way Konoha was, admittedly, but there was a stillness that was often hard to find in his home village. The air wasn't as crisp, feeling drying, but it was pleasing all the same. Naruto was sitting on the roof of his inn, taking in the village. The Konoha duo just arrived earlier today. The match was scheduled for tomorrow in their Chunin exam arena, and they were slated to leave the day after, health provided. Traveling with Jiraiya was fine. Naruto didn't take to his sense of humor. The Gama-sannin relied too heavily on innuendo for Naruto, and it felt disingenuous for some reason. However, when he wasn't making his pervy jokes, Jiraiya could be good company. The two discussed Fuinjutsu a bit and strategies to combat Gaara. Jiraiya was satisfied with Naruto's intended approach, so Naruto felt prepared. He wanted to enjoy the chicken satay he ordered from the stand, but the killing intent directed toward him was making it impossible. He was familiar with the source. Gaara spilled killing into like a bottle with a hole and it leaked fluids. Naruto just wished he'd do something or leave. His presence was becoming bothersome. But seeing as his fellow Jinchuriki wasn't going to do anything but observe, Naruto decided to act. Can you just come on out? Naruto said, annoyance clear in his tone. Mother wants your blood, Uzumaki. Okay. Gaara was momentarily thrown for a loop. There had been many reactions to his declaration of his mother's desires, but never an okay. You're not afraid? Not really. You strong for your age, sure. Dangerous even, but no real reason to fear you now. Why not? You aren't attacking me. I don't believe you came here to attack me now, not when we'll fight tomorrow. So, what do you want? To tell you you're going to die tomorrow and help me prove my existence. Gaara said, coming out of his confusion. How does that work? Now, it was Naruto's turn to be confused. I only exist for me, and I prove I'm alive by killing all those that would seek to harm me. Oh, that sounds lonely. So, you want to kill me, because we have to fight tomorrow? Yes. Mother says you are strong and therefore are a threat to me. I must remove all threats. Then you're focused on the wrong person. The guy I came here with, he'd crack both our skulls with minimal effort. That's power. We're both just exceptional for our ages. Besides, not everyone who could harm you would want to. That has not been my experience. You want to tell me about it? Why would you care, Uzumaki? It won't help you defeat me. Naruto rolled his eyes. I didn't think it would. Look, my food is getting cold, but I hate eating alone. You can come sit down and talk to me, while we share this, or you can leave and let me eat in peace. I'm not trying to trick you. As far as I'm concerned, we are enemies. Gaara was initially hesitant, and the voice of his mother wasn't helping, but he decided to sit down and share a meal with the confusing Redeed. The two Jinchuriki initially sat in silence, both staring at the moon before Gaara spoke. He said the moon reminded him on the night his uncle tried to kill him, and then relayed his experiences in Suna. How everyone viewed him as a monster, how no one cared for him, and when he decided to live only for himself. I get it. I mean, no one attempted to assassinate me, not that I know of at least, so your situation was worse than my own, but I do understand. I used to be really angry when I was younger, angry at everything and everyone. Why did they ignore me? Why did they seem to wish I wasn't there? Why could everyone else have friends and family but me? What had I done? Naruto said. I was so angry, but too weak to do anything about it, so I started to train. When I entered the academy and the sensei didn't like me, didn't want to treat me like everyone else, I trained even more. I wanted to prove I didn't need them. If they didn't want to teach me jutsu, I'd create my own. If they didn't want me at the academy, I'd graduate early. If the Sandaime didn't want to give me a team, I'd become the most powerful reservist ever. But you know what? What? The anger never went away. I was often too tired to think about it, but it'd still be there in the morning to greet me. It'd still be there when I ate, filling the silence of my life. My summons helped, I got them when I was 8, and it helped having them, but it wasn't enough. The glares and the shunning were still present. Creating my own ninjutsu didn't help either, not fully. Graduating early certainly didn't. All these things I was gaining and accomplishing diminished it, but never removed it. So, what did you do? Gaara asked, truly interested in what the boy had to say. I had to let it all go. Part of the reason I was still angry wasn't just because it was unfair, but in wanting their acknowledgement. I had to accept I may never get it and truly embrace those that did see my value. In a sense, I forgave them. Not absolved, but I gave myself permission to not hate them anymore. I had my summons, I had my training, and I was starting to gain people who did see me for myself. One of the academy sensei that was so called to me, apologized a few months after I graduated and said I could come to him if I ever had any questions. A couple of jounin helped me further my knowledge in their areas of specialty, one even became my jounin sensei. I'll probably never be universally loved, I can't change the minds of everyone, but I can value those that value me. I don't know what will happen tomorrow, but if you want, after everything is settled, maybe we can try being friends. Naruto suggested at the end. Is this a trick? No, Gaara, no trick, but I get why you think it might be. Even if you decide we can't be friends, try to find someone you can connect with. Living for yourself is hollow, and you don't deserve a hollow existence. Well, it's getting late, think about what I said, Gaara, and I'll see you tomorrow. Naruto said, leaving the roof. Gaara just sat there for a while in silent debate, before shining away as well. The near midday sun couldn't be a more pronounced distinction from the night Naruto enjoyed. It was beaming, unrelentingly upon all beneath it. He'd arrived at the arena 20 minutes ago, waiting for the start of this farce. The arena was full of Suna shinobi and civilians, something that further annoyed Naruto. He'd be going to war with an organization of S-rank shinobi soon, so of course he'd want to broadcast his techniques to any so inclined to see them. This was so very stupid. Not that Gaara wasn't a challenging opponent, he'd have to stay sharp to avoid getting seriously injured, it just seemed pointless. He was a shinobi and this was a cockfight, even more so than the Chunin exams, because this had no larger purpose than one man's curiosity. Naruto truly disliked people that abused their authority, especially when they did it for idiotic reasons like this. Learning the man attempted to murder his own son only deepened his dislike into a true loathing. The Kazekage was scum, as far as Naruto was concerned. Gaara finally arrived and the proctor, the jounin that accompanied Gaara to Konoha, signaled his start, and Gaara immediately sent his sand after Naruto. Naruto, wisely, made haste, performing a shunshin to create distance from his opponent. When coming up with a strategy to defeat Gaara, Naruto ran into some limitations, namely Gaara's sand defense. He didn't want to kill nor seriously harm an ally, the problem was anything that could penetrate his sand defense could penetrate him. When you make a hole in a human they tend to die. He'd already resigned himself to not using his sword, blunted, and it couldn't cut through Gaara's defense, but edge active, and it might cut something off Gaara. That was just another reason this fight blew a fat one. Deciding to go on the offense, Naruto performs another shunshin to close the distance, and tests the reaction speed of Gaara's defense. Appearing to the right side of Gaara, Naruto throws a kick, but the sand intercepts it, meeting his shin before he could make contact. Undeterred, he spins around with increased speed and aims a hit on Gaara's back, but once again, the sand blocks him though he did get closer. Pulling back his fist, Naruto increases his speed again, performing a 3-hit combination to Gaara's left side. Two were stop, but the last slipped through and Gaara ate the body blow. Naruto was unable to follow up as he felt the sentient sand attempt to close around his fist. He dashed backward to create some distance again, signaling the end of their first exchange. The crowd, the Kazekage included, was shocked that someone managed to get through Gaara's defense with just a jutsu. Gaara was unhappy he was struck, never having been hit before. Naruto was shaking off the pain he felt, and deduced Gaara had a layer of sand on his skin. He was taking deep breaths, not because the exchange was taxing, as his natural stamina and training would allow him to do much more, but the adrenaline of trying to bypass the sand defense, while avoiding it all the same. It was as he thought, his taijutsu would be of limited aid. The required degree of near perfection with him going near his top speed was just a waste of resources, unless he softened Gaara up first. Gaara had gotten past whatever shock and discomfort he felt, his sand armor absorbing most of the impact, so the pain he felt was dull to begin with. He opted to take the initiative this time, and not allow Naruto to attack as he pleased. Naruto could feel the ground moving beneath him, and backflipped right before sand emerged underneath him. The sand began to give chase, but Naruto managed to dip and dodge each attempt. More focused on the sand than his opponent, he didn't see the sand spear headed toward him until it was too late. Narrowly, Naruto avoided serious damage, but it did graze his side, blooding the Uzumaki. Reflexively, Naruto grabbed at his side and also stopped his movement, allowing Gaara to finally capture him with his sand, by his ankle. Naruto thought quickly and moved quicker still. He tossed two kunai up into the air, both hurtling at impressive speeds. Naruto managed to replace himself with one of the kunai before Gaara could perform his sand coffin, and watched as his kunai was crushed by the jutsu. Naruto instantly grabbed the second kunai he threw, as he appeared right beside it, and on instinct alone channeled the supersonic chakra into it, and threw it at sand user. As Naruto fell to the ground, he watched as the kunai tore through Gaara's initial defense, and even pierced his sand armor at the shoulder, slicing him cleanly. Everything seemed to stop when Gaara's blood started to spill from his wound. The audience was unnaturally silent, not quite able to believe what they were seeing. Before long their stupor was broken when they heard a shrill scream. "Blood. It's my blood," he said in a panic and quickly put up a sphere of dense sand around him. Naruto was at a loss as to how to proceed. He could get through the defense, he'd shown that, but it would only continue to hurt Gaara, and the boy was clearly unstable. If he pressed the advantage, the Jinchuriki might do something regrettable, and a lot of people may get hurt, even if some of them deserved it. Naruto didn't want that on his conscience, so he waited. "And my blood. My blood," Gaara repeated, having a conversation none could hear. "You must kill him. He's just like the rest of them, he only wants to harm you. You don't need him, you don't need anyone. Is mother right? Was he lying? Is he like everyone else? Just wanting to deny my existence?" Gaara was confused by his short dinner with the Uzumaki. That pain he saw in the other boy's eyes was so familiar to him. Only someone that had experienced a comparable hell of loneliness could have that look, but then what could he make of this? The boy claimed to want to be friends, but wounded him. He was lying. That's what people do, they lie so they can kill you. "You must kill him." "I must. But if you were trying to kill me, why hasn't he attacked me again?" "Because we are too powerful. His trick won't work again. Just let me out and I'll take care of him. And all your enemies, I'll kill them all for you." "Yes, you could kill them all." Gaara agreed. "With ease. Release me and I'll do just that. And then where would I be? Alone. You don't need other people. You only need me, no one else matters. Then why hasn't the pain ever gone away? Why does it always hurt, no matter how many I kill? You just haven't killed all who would oppose you. Once you do, you'll see, it'll be better then." "You're lying. Your way doesn't work, it has never worked." Gaara thought. "Release me now. You are nothing without me, so release me." "No. No, I won't. I'm going to follow a different path, and you will not stop me." Gaara said and stopped the conversation. Only a few minutes had passed since he created his sand dome, but everyone was waiting for what he'd do. His siblings expected to see the miniature sand monster emerge as Gaara has used it before, but were shocked when the dome dropped and it was just Gaara holding his injured shoulder. He gave a slight smile to Naruto, and Naruto nodded back in understanding. After a brief stare down, the match continued once again. Now with much more vehemence and resolve, Gaara attempted to trap Naruto in his sand, but like before, but much more carefully, Naruto slipped out of his traps, even running up a wall when cornered. The cut to his side had since healed, but lingering pain and tenderness limited Naruto's mobility. He was being pushed by the constant sand attacks, and he didn't like it. While his stamina may be superior to Gaara's, it wouldn't matter if he's the only one having to move. He dodged a wave of sand and resolved to get closer. When Naruto was within 10 feet, he blurred through a series of hand signs while inhaling and then exhaled, sub-vocalizing his jutsu. Fire style, combustion stream. The jutsu made a beeline for Gaara, and well has sand intercepted it. Gaara had not expected the outcome, though as a thin layer of the sand detonated in front of him. The rest of the sand absorbed the heat and shrapnel, but couldn't absorb the concussive force, and Gaara was sent backward midair, facing the sky. Naruto wasted no time creating 3 shadow clones. One appeared under Gaara, kicking his back. The other 2 clones repeated the process, kicking the Tsunade Jinchuriki higher and higher, or further and further away from his protective sand. Before he could get his wits, Gaara saw Naruto above him, with a glowing orb in his right hand. A Sengen. He shouted mightily while bearing the underpowered jutsu in Gaara's stomach, sending him down at rapid speeds. Gaara landed with a thud. His sand hadn't been there to soften the blow, and all watched to see what would happen. It was clear, if you could see his face, Gaara was hurting and exhausted. He waved Baki over, and the Jounin came to his horde. I give. Gaara said in his usual monotone, but there was a slight smile on his face. While suffering from disbelief, Baki still managed to call the match for Naruto, and after a period of silence the crowd erupted in cheers and applause at the battle they just witnessed. The Suna ninja gave both boys looks of respect and acknowledgement. It warmed something deep inside Naruto, and he could only smile bashfully as he scratched the back of his head. He waved to the crowd and walked to the exit, only to be met by Jiraiya. You did good, kid. Thanks, pervy sage. I told you not to call me that, brat. Had better jokes than I would, Tobeo. But Gaara, Temari and Kankuro arrived on the arena floor and picked their little brother up. Both were surprised he hadn't given in to his Bijuu, and were impressed with his fight. Temari, Kankuro, I'm sorry, for everything. He said, and both elder siblings smiled. It'd take a while, but maybe they could be a family again. Later that evening, the Sand siblings dropped in on Naruto at his room, Gaara's shoulder noticeably wrapped up. They brought a spread of native dishes, and all had dinner together. Naruto enjoyed the food, especially the curried eggplant, but enjoyed the company even more. Temari and he exchanged some ideas on wind jutsu, whereas Kankuro put on an impromptu puppet show of their fight from earlier, except Gaara won this time. It was a nice night. Jiraiya was not having a nice night. He'd been summoned to the Kazekage's office, and while he had no desire to talk to the man, he knew he didn't have a choice. Kage were a lot of things, but rarely were they dull and joyless. Rasa was a hard man that thought being a hard man was a personality. Jiraiya, through his network, knew about what the man did to his son, and his attempts to kill the poor kid. If it wouldn't have destabilized the nation, Jiraiya considered removing the man from office. Nothing could justify what Rasa attempted to do on multiple occasions. He arrived to the office with little fanfare, Rasa only lifting his head as an acknowledgement that Jiraiya was there. He then handed Jiraiya a file folder. Jiraiya quickly skimmed the information, not liking what he was reading at all, and was, increasing, unconcerned with what the man's death would do to Wind Country. Once he finished reading, he met the man's eyes, Jiraiya's face a mask of emotionlessness. Why show me this? Jiraiya asked. Because you needed to know I have this. I was never fully sold on if your Jinchuriki was really his son. The facts my spies were able to gather suggested as much, and your interest in him did as well, but seeing him fight, it just felt like Minato. Naruto fights nothing like Minato, I should know seeing as how I trained him from a genin. You're right, their styles are nothing alike, but there's an intensity of focus there. Even if the boy never knew a single one of his father's infamous jutsu, and sooner we believe the blood will tell. Given how Minato's and my reign as a Kage were similar, I wanted to see who created the superior weapon. It appears the 4th Hokage bested me. I'm not confirming Naruto is Minato's son, but I will tell you Minato didn't seal the Kyuubi in Naruto to make him a weapon. Sure, Jiraiya. He was too noble for that. You still haven't told me what you want. Now? Nothing. But we are due to renegotiate our alliance a few months after your planned AIM invasion. I just want you to know I have options, and as much as Iwa may hate Suna, they hate Minato Namikaze 1,000 times more. I wouldn't be screwed over by Konoha again, Jiraiya. Tell your Sandaime that, and you can keep that file. I have copies. Jiraiya simply took the file and left. The next morning the Sand siblings bid Naruto a fond farewell, and he did the same, delighted he may have made 3 new friends. As they traveled back, Naruto could tell something was bothering Jiraiya. His jokes were even more forced, but even as Naruto called him out on his act, Jiraiya wouldn't divulge any details, so he let up, but was worried about his godfather. When the pair arrived back to Konoha, Naruto made a beeline toward the Hokage Tower and Jiraiya off to parts unknown. Naruto was motivated by something Gaara said during their parting. Naruto, it is admirable you let go of your hatred, but the villagers were wrong. While revenge is hollow, accountability is not. You deserve justice, my friend. He'd never really considered making the villagers pay after he'd resolved to move past his anger and resentment. He simply didn't know how to do so with the means available to him. He thought about, and on the last night of the trip it occurred to him what he needed to do. Some may hate him for it, some may call it petty, but Naruto was confident it was the right thing to do. He wasted no time arriving at the Hokage's office, and gave his debrief, giving a detailed description of the fight. The old man seemed pleased with his win, but truthfully, Naruto didn't care how he felt about anything. As soon as his debrief concluded, Naruto started in on his second bit of business. Sandame-sama, I speak to you now as the heir of the Uzumaki clan, as I have an official request. Hiruzen looked confused as to what clan business Naruto could have but hoped it wasn't anything too serious. After his fight with Asuma, he just didn't want any more bad news. What is it, Naruto-kun? I'd like my clan's crest removed from all Jounin and Chunin vests, and anything else he may have appeared on. I'm revoking Konoha's privilege of bearing it as a sign of friendship. Konoha hasn't been a friend to the Uzumaki in some time. Hiruzen could only pinch his nose as the headache this was going to cause. Jiraiya hadn't just drifted off when he returned. He too had a destination in mind. He didn't like Ross's threat. True, any Kage would attempt to strengthen their negotiating position to do better for their village, so in that regard, he couldn't fault Rossa. But he was holding a knife to Naruto's throat, and that Jiraiya would never abide. He resolved to not tell the old man what Rossa had. If his plan worked out, the issue would be resolved before it ever came up. When he arrived to his destination, he laid out everything, every detail he had in his aims. It made his skin crawl, not what he was setting in motion. He'd been an assassin for decades, but who he'd gone to for help with this. He just hated allowing her to have anything over him. You want me to kill Rossa? She said bluntly. Yes. He said and waited for her list of demands. It was going to be painful, and he prepared for her to take a pound of flesh. Okay. Okay. Yes, okay. He'll be dead a month before the negotiations would be scheduled to begin. And what do you want? What could I possibly want from you, Jiraiya? My body. She snorted in response. I'd sooner seduce Sune. Ew, could I watch? And when the pervert appears, that means it's time for you to go. Bye, Jiraiya. Fine, I'm leaving, but don't think I'll allow you to blackmail me over this. Bye, Jiraiya. She said again. Bye. Orochimaru waited a few minutes after Jiraiya left and then trashed her study. She had plans to kill Rossa when she was going to have Suna attack Konoha, but those plans changed. Now he's made himself an obstacle to her plans, and that simply could not be tolerated. Rossa would never see his children reach adulthood, and all because he dared to threaten Naruto. Chapter 6. Electric Relaxation. Hiruzen had never been apathetic to her smile. When she were young, it filled him with a fatherly instinct and a mentor's pride. Once matured, it lit the spark of desire within him, but as their relationship dissolved, the cruelty behind it left him cold, regretful and mourning the loss of the innocent student he once knew. Now, it fills him with a hatred hotter than any Kaiten jutsu known to man. He wants nothing more than to strangle the very life from her, and then send her soul to the Shinigami for a light snack. What do you want? He asked, acid lacing every word. Kukuku, you seem to ask that a lot, sensei. She replied and was not wrong. He needed to know what her plot was, what her endgame was, so he could stop it. He'd protect Konoha from her even with his last breath. Well? He bit back. Oh, nothing, just checking in. How's Asuma? He seemed really upset when we returned. Oh, she loved to twist a knife, Hiruzen thought. She was so very pleased with herself. Do you enjoy this? I've worked hard to mend my relationship with Asuma, and you tear it down for your own amusement. Not just my amusement, that was a byproduct. Besides, you only have yourself to blame. I bet you use the same tired excuses you used on me. I have so many demands on my time. My shinobi need me, the civilians need me, and while I love them, even my family makes demands of me. I just need something for myself, just time to be Hiruzen. She said with a laugh. Hiruzen flinched, as that had been exactly what he said to Asuma. He wanted his son to understand the pressures of being Hokage, of being subsumed by the responsibilities of the office. Asuma thought it was bullshit. You know it's a lie, right? Apparently, so does she. You could have just retired, any one of us were ready to take the mantle. You chose to hang on to power until after the Third Shinobi War. You were so in love with being the Hokage, the goddess shinobi, that you couldn't make room for anyone else. That's the truth of the matter. I won't debate this with you. And if I have to suffer your vile presence, it should be for a reason. Now what do you want? I heard you lost us the privilege to wear the Uzumaki symbol. Is that true? Oh, she's just aiming for all the soft spots today. You know it is. He's your student. Hi, but he went to sleep instantly upon his return, so we haven't had a chance to speak. Any ideas for a replacement? Maybe you could make it a contest, village-wide. To emphasize my blunder even more. Yes. Now, you getting it? She said with genuine enthusiasm. What do you want? Where does this all end? I won't let you hurt Konoha. Kukuku, why would I want to hurt Konoha? I live here, I wouldn't burn my own house down just to spite you. I don't believe that for a second. Hiruzen said dryly. Okay, maybe I would, but I'm not. That has to count for something, right, sensei? The poets will write epics about your magnanimity. Then I have truly lived a full and happy life. Once again, Orochimaru, what do you want? To tell you, my Odonins have cleared the last of Danzo's known root bases. Can't say they killed them all, but they got most of them. Good, if that is all, you may leave. Hiruzen said and sighed when she complied. It took a great deal of his discipline not to strike down the woman when he laid eyes on her, to so casually upend all the work Asuma and he had done to fix their relationship, and simply out of spite. To further hurt him. He knew she hated him and it was justified to an extent, but when would enough be enough? He could contain her to the village, watch her every moment, but until he had a firm idea of what she truly wanted he couldn't get ahead of her. He was stuck reacting to her moves and didn't know how to change the position. Orochimaru left with a smile on her face. People underestimate the power of petty revenge. And with each slight she was confident the old monkey would continue to think she had some grand scheme with him in mind, when truthfully, there was only one target of her machinations, and it'd be a few years still before she could fully act on them. Thinking about him led her to considering the Rasa issue. She could kill him in open combat no problem. It'd literally be no problem at all, but assassinating him is something a little different. She couldn't just send a snake to poison him, or sink her kusanagi into his heart. She realized being an S-rank missing nin has left her assassination skills rusty. As far as the hiding all traces, you were the culprit part. She hasn't cared, as someone knew she killed a target in years. Funny that time was on her side, and because she knew Rasa little she could make some assumptions. The most obvious being he likely has the information set the release upon his death, but wouldn't place the copy somewhere too far out of his control. He trusted no one and essentially only tolerated Baki, because the man was powerful, and could keep Gaara on the leash. That'd have to be accounted for, but she tasked Jiraiya with it. He wouldn't keep his hands clean on this just in case he was trying to set her up. Granted, she had plans to implicate or outright kill him if he double-crossed her, but she was aware enough to realize the likelihood of needing these contingencies were slim. Jiraiya wasn't the fool he let others believe him to be. He was as hardened as any other war veteran, but he'd play it straight when it came to Naruto. Him staying away from Naruto wasn't entirely of his choosing. Her spies had sussed that out, not that she'd acknowledge it. Why give up some emotional blackmail, just because it isn't true? That's absurd. Clearing her mind of her digression, she went back to the how. He had guards, so she'd need to find out how loyal and diligent they were to his well-being. That might be an in. She might be able to seduce him, even if she found it repugnant. Not seduction in general, but Rasa struck her as climaxer, and she didn't need nor want to deal with that. Or he'd just be really bad because he thought too highly of himself, and would need constant reassurance that he was good or big or something else. Not worth the effort or the nice pair of panties she'd waste on the night. She chuckled to herself as she continued home. She still had time, so she'd think of something. The trio looked on to their singular enemy with exasperation. They'd thrown everything they could at him and nothing has worked. Their best formations, their most practiced attacks all failed to even graze him. It was a level beyond frustrating, and the feeling of fatigue they all shared only increased their negative emotions. Taking a steadying breath, the leader charged forth with his quarterstaff. A sweep to the legs was avoided with a mere hop. The following swipe to the ribs was dodged with an easy rotation. Not satisfied with just being on defense, the opponent sent a kick to the staff wielder that pushed him off balance. The other two of the trio finally re-engaged, having gained enough energy for a final onslaught. The smallest came with her sword. A textbook dual-handed overhead strike meant for the shoulder caused the target of the attack to jump sideways to avoid it. Said target then had to deflect a series of shuriken that was thrown by the third, the last member willing to play support. Not giving him any breathing room, the Kenjutsu user continued to press the attack, downward, upward and horizontal slashes all just missing. Each miss attack draining even more stamina, causing unsteady legs to shake under the strain. The Bujutsu user returned to the fray with a desperation-fueled ferocity he hadn't shown. The lone defender parried and dodged their attacks, but never forgot about the third member lying in wait, and his patience was soon rewarded as said member decided to join in on the attack. He decided it was time to end this. As soon as the third was within striking distance, he swiftly relieved the Bujutsu user of his quarterstaff and downed him with a palm strike. Without an instance of hesitation, he threw the staff toward the other two opponents, the support ninja making the mistake of catching it, as it left him open for the aerial assault of his opponent. 2 kicks, delivered with a spin, felled the boy, and he was down for the count. In an impressive display of acrobatics, the attacker landed on his back and immediately kicking up, as to not give his final enemy even a hint of an opening. Seeing she was alone, tired and outmatched, she laid her sword down in defeat, and was immediately greeted with a smile and him rubbing her head. She broke out into a blush but slapped his hand away. Don't do that. Ah, why not, Mogi-chan? You did really well, you all did. Groans is all Naruto got in response. You're too good, boss. We can't hit you. Konohamaru complained. It's not that, I'm moving just a bit beyond you guys' speed. You just have to get a little more creative with your tactics. A direct assault can be useful, especially when collectively you have the superior skills, but when you're outmatched you have to find to create your own advantages, and then exploit it, he said before looking to Yuden. You abandoned the support role too fast, Yuden. It's a good impulse to want to protect your team, but protection can take many forms. Had you continued to pepper me with shuriken, it might have created an opening for Connor Mogi. You need to get familiar with how they fight so you can guide opponents to where they'd be most vulnerable. Naruto explained and saw Yuden look down in shame or silent recrimination. However, you're on your way there. Early on, when they needed a break or some space, you made it for them, and you're good at letting them know what you're thinking. Once you start picking up some tactics and strategy in the academy, you'll be even better. And your Shurikenjutsu is well trained for your age. Naruto finished and saw the boy smile brightly. Mugi-chan, what's the most important thing to a swordsman or woman as the case may be? Breathing. If you can control your breathing, you can avoid tension in your muscles. Tension slows down reaction time and robs the strikes of speed and power. Good. What's the second? Legs. They have to be strong and swift, steady and nimble. Exactly. Once you were getting tired, your breathing control was shot, and your legs were unsteady. When that happens, you have to switch things up. It takes dedication to learn Kenjutsu, but you aren't a samurai, that isn't all you'll be using. He said, and she nodded, taking the criticism a little better than Yuden. But you are improving and you'll be ready to learn a style outside of the basics soon. Con, good staff work. Speed and control are all acceptable, but you need to control your emotions. The moment you got frustrated, you started telegraphing your moves. If the other two are following your lead, then you'll make them predictable, too. Predictable is the one thing you don't want to be. Hi. With that being said, you guys are getting better now. Here Naruto unsealed some canteens of water, and some orange slices. Have a snack and some water. I have to meet my Shishu soon. The trio did as told and chatted away about the academy and other events. Konohamaru begged Naruto to teach them some awesome jutsu, and he promised to show them something next time, something small to get them started. He started to depart when he saw Bisu arrive. He gave the man a nod in acknowledgement and departed, glad he got to spend some time with the brats as he hadn't seen them in a while. Uzumaki-san was right in his review. You'd all do well to heed his advice. Ibisu said. Yay, boss is cool. He's even a chunin now. Konohamaru said, excitedly, and the other two nodded in agreement. Yes, quite cool. Now, are you three too tired for more training? No, they responded. Good, then let's practice our chakra control. Ibisu said and fought back the urge to laugh at their facial reactions. I know for a fact that Uzumaki-san practices his chakra control constantly, and it's one of the reasons he's considered an up-and-coming ninjutsu specialist. The better control you have, the more you can do with your chakra. Fine. Konohamaru huffed out in defeat. Good, grab some leaves. While training with the Khan and the gang is always fun, Naruto had to get to his training, and his Shishu didn't appear to be holding back today. His various pain grunts would be a clear sign of that. The goal was teaching him how to handle opponents faster than him by increasing his reaction time and sharpening his awareness. Ugh. He was having mixed results. Get up, Naruto-kun, I barely tapped you. I think we both know that's not true. Naruto said, picking himself up off the ground. Kukuku, okay. But you're so durable. All my other training dummies break. I'm really feeling the love here, Shishu. Naruto replied, deadpan. That comes when you're older, I do have standards. Orochimaru shot back before going on the attack again. It was only the slimmest of margins that would allow him to avoid her strikes, a brief sound or the change in the wind. It wasn't a lot, and sometimes he was doing little more than guessing. He ducked and felt her leg brush the top of his head. He rolled forward, making her leg sweep useless. Not thinking, he performed a mule kick that connected with her arms, but it made her pause for a moment, long enough for Naruto to go on the attack. Using the surface walking technique, Naruto clung to her forearm and immediately twisted, bring his other leg up for another kick. She blocked it with ease and pulsed her chakra to dislodge her student. Naruto didn't let the loss of leverage deter him as he sent a punch to her face, but she evaded it without effort and tossed the red-haired Uzumaki away as she still had a hold of his leg. Naruto righted himself midair, but had to go into evasion mode again as she began to attack relentlessly. Even with his enhanced stamina, being forced to fight above his level drained Naruto, and he was getting slower but not sloppy, his time with the Panthers teaching him how to hold himself even when fatigued. It didn't stop him from getting picked apart as she pot-shotted Naruto until he hit the ground, breathing heavily. Okay, that's enough of that. Good, I don't think there was anywhere left on my body for you to hit me. Better I do it than an enemy, Naruto-kun. Besides, you're improving. As expected. She said with a glint in her eyes. Why? Please don't make me say it. We had a deal, and from my understanding Naruto Uzumaki doesn't go back on his word. Why couldn't my Nindo be I'd eat as much ramen as I can? Stupid me. Stop stalling. Fine. I'm improving because you, Shishu-sama, are the world's greatest kunoichi/genius, and the best of the Sannin. See, that wasn't so hard. Now, how's everything else coming along? You having your clones train with the Kiri swords? 2 of them. Samahata still won't accept me yet, and I'm not going to be a meal for a sword. And the Kubichi Kubikiri's abuses sword is all wrong for my frame. Even the name is a mouthful. Kubikiribacho. Would you look at that, guess I can handle a mouthful. Kukuku, future reference. Orochimaru said with a wink, causing Naruto to blush slightly at her innuendo. I'd recommend coming to an accord with Samihata, it's too useful not to. Now, how about your ninjutsu? Anything new? Maybe a few developments. I wanted to have something definitive before I came to you. So, you know how we've been making plans for any pair of the Akatsuki that I'm married into? Yes, you seemed confident you had workable plans for Kakuzu in hiding, but thought Sasori and Tadara would give you and your team problems. Yay. I may have the Sasori part figured out, even if he's a nightmare for Kurenai-sensei, Shino and Shika. But Tadara was the hardest for me to plan for, given he's a long-distance threat, and his natural counter is my worst element. Naruto said and saw her nod. Making a long-distance raid in jutsu is difficult and inefficient. That's the general consensus. Are you about to show me something different? She asked in excitement. Yep. Watch, Naruto said before performing a lightning style. Lightning beast running jutsu and saw the standard-looking raid and peter out at 10 meters. Orochimaru didn't look confused, nor disappointed as she knew her student wouldn't waste her time, so she waited patiently for Naruto to continue his demonstration. Naruto then ran through the same hand signs and performed the jutsu again, except this time the beast was red, and didn't give out until it was 25 meters away. Red lightning. I wonder if it's similar to Kumo's black lightning. I don't know. From my understanding, the black lightning is more powerful than standard raiden techniques. The red lightning isn't really more powerful, but it can travel further distances and something else. What? In response, Naruto threw 4 kunai that were 15 meters apart, and then performed another red lightning jutsu, aimed at the center kunai. To Orochimaru's surprise, the jutsu split off and hit the other kunai once it made contact. I called that my chain lightning jutsu. Whereas a normal lightning technique is easy to avoid if you're not the intended target, the red lightning seeks other conductors. Best thing. Chakra sources fall into that category. Lost a lot of clones to that one. Could it be made to hone in on a specific target? If I were more of a sensor? Possibly. Not having much luck with Karen-chan's technique, she inquired. No, there's a block. I feel like I'm right there, but until it's resolved I won't make much progress with it. Keep at it, you'll figure something out, but even now you continue to impress me. I'd suggest developing a focus-piercing attack to go along with your wide area effect one. Orochimaru said after a moment of contemplation. I'll dedicate some clones to it, Shishu. Good. Any other new developments? Some rough ideas. Once I get something more solid, I'll let you know. Excellent. Now, you've rested enough, so unseal your sword, so we can get your Kenjutsu practice in. Awesome. Let's get wild, Shishu. Naruto exclaimed after unsealing his katana. Oh, Naruto-kun, so eager to penetrate me. Don't say things like that, Tebeo. Naruto yelled, fighting a full blush. Kabuto was annoyed he had to stop his work to answer the door. He knew his mistress would not interrupt her training session with the Uzumaki, and with everyone else gone, it left it to him. He'd grumble if it weren't wholly beneath him. The Nara that was on the other side of the door didn't surprise him, and he escorted him toward the Uzumaki. However, when he heard a feminine giggle from the training grounds, he lost his footing. The white snake didn't giggle. She laughed in such a way to state her superiority, the predator taunting the prey. She laughed and it sent shivers down one's spine as you awaited the lethal strike, or had a sense of foreboding as she knew something you didn't. She laughed and shit got done. She does not giggle. And yet he knows what he heard, and it was just one of the many distressing things about their time here. Or really, since her fascination with the Uzumaki became something more. They haven't tortured anyone together in 2 months. When they were killing Rutenin, she didn't even try to break them mentally. Just stab, 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 stab. No artistry or anything. She hasn't even forcibly experimented on someone in a while. She was becoming something different, and Kabuto didn't like that. He needed his mistress back. The Nara and the Uzumaki left, but Kabuto was focused on Orochimaru as she stared at him, which was always unnerving, but double so for someone that knew what she were truly capable of. Whatever has been bothering you lately, you need to deal with it, Kabuto-kun. She said simply, and he only nodded. She was right, he simply needed to deal with his problem. Itachi took his leave when Naruto made plans to go to the annual Ino Shikacho picnic. He was due for a shift change, but had to report to the Sandame before he could call it a day. The Sandame suspects Orochimaru is up to something and plans to turn Naruto against the village. It's an understandable fear, but Itachi has yet to see any attempt to do so. Suggestive comments signaling a willingness to blur the lines between master and student. Yes. And Itachi really didn't know if the Sandame would actually prefer that to the alternative. As he arrived in the Hokage's office, he kneeled and awaited instruction. Report. The Hokage ordered his most loyal Anbu. Nothing to report today, Hokage-sama. She has stuck to the same training regimen as when she began his instruction. How is he progressing? Well, Hokage-sama. Whatever limitations his body is presenting, they are finding ways to work around it, and he takes well to her teachings on tactics. And his ninjutsu. Innovative. He seems to demonstrate something new with frightening regularity. He may surpass the Nidame as Konoha's greatest jutsu creator. A high bar, this I know from experience. So how would you rate him? He would not fall under our understanding as a natural genius like Kakashi and myself were called. He is prodigious, his output has more than earned him the title, but it's hard to classify. What do you mean? Hiruzen asked in curiosity. If you judge him by existing standards he is talented, but mostly gets by through his hard work. This isn't incorrect but misses the point. I believe to truly understand Naruto-kun you'll have to judge him against himself. His path won't be like anyone else's, convention won't have any relevance for him. A paradigm shift. Hiruzen asked rhetorically as he understood it. There were people who could excel in the most magnificent ways in what was known, like a child, that can get perfect scores on any test. But there were those, the select few whom thought so differently, that they simply weren't meant to be understood by existing criteria. They broke the mold. Someone like that could be hard to train as finding out how to reach them would tax a sensei, that desire to utilize the tried and true. It hurt Hiruzen to think this, but Naruto's neglect might have been the best thing for him. Because there was no one to tell him he was wrong or wasting time, Naruto's development could chart a course none had attempted before. He didn't know what was possible or impossible, and his natural Uzumaki's stubbornness would ensure the boy wouldn't deem something impossible until he was satisfied it was so. His stunningly large chakra capacity, ever increasing according to the village's censor corporation, meant Naruto could do things at a much younger age than almost any before him. Throw and shadow clones and the boy's potential was bordering on infinite. Only hindered by time and imagination, it was a scary prospect. No way I could pry a specific jutsu out of you. Sorry, Hokage-sama, but it falls under clan jutsu until Naruto teaches another. No hints. I'm sorry, Hokage-sama. That's fine, Weasel. Is there anything else for you to report? He asked and saw Itachi shake his head no. So, nothing that would give me pause, the Hokage asked. Nothing that is outwardly sinister, Hokage-sama. What do you mean by that, Itachi? We've accepted she is interested in Naruto and potentially grooming him for something. The only question was what. I believe she may be shaping him into her ideal paramare. Itachi answered dryly and saw the disturbance in the Sandame's face. The what? He said in disbelief. Paramare. Her future lover, Hokage-sama. I know what a paramare is, child. Hiruzen said, dismissively. His mind now elsewhere as he wondered what his vile student had planned. Did she want a repeat of past events, a long-term seduction of Naruto, only to wound him so severely he too turns toward the darkness? Minato's son labeled a traitor and using all of his skill and power to attack the leaf. That would be bad, beyond bad. But it would be a fitting revenge for two of the men that denied her the dream of being Hokage. To twist the hidden prince of the village, so much he becomes its greatest enemy. He had to get her away from him, that had always been clear. There were but so many ways to do that. With the upcoming assault on AIM, maybe he could arrange for her not to survive, but if that failed he'd damn himself. Or if she were prepared and left word to Naruto he'd believe her without question. Once again, she was so far ahead of him, the game was half over before he realized he was playing. He wanted to admonish himself in his diminishing prowess, but needed to focus. She could not be allowed to break Naruto. The boy was meant for great things. He has the drive to become something special. Hiruzen knew that a lot of Naruto's loss of love for Konoha was because of him, the one person he trusted. He always assumed he could make the boy understand without being truthful, with kind words and ambiguous statements. That wasn't the case and he'd never mend the relationship, he had to accept that. But he did love and value Naruto, even if past actions would argue otherwise. He couldn't allow him to turn toward the darkness, her darkness, that he helped cultivate. A seed having borne fruit and looking to seed the earth again. A cycle of his own creation, built on selfishness and arrogance. He couldn't let that be his legacy, the coda to his long life. He was a flawed man but not an evil one. He'd sought peace when possible, lived to protect the king of the village. His positives were greater than his failings. He'd saved Naruto from her. Thank you Weasel, you are dismissed. The Anbu wasted no time departing. Hiruzen then spoke to the Anbu still in his office. Please retrieve Anko Mitarashi, he ordered. He didn't like what he was about to do, nor that he'd be playing on Anko's hatred, but if he could get another woman to turn Naruto's head before Orochimaru could ever sink her fangs into him then her plan would be for naught. Naruto would only hate him more for the manipulation, but it was for the best. The boy didn't understand how truly evil she was. Ino was being troublesome. Almost everyone was today. He didn't care for this annual get-together, a celebration of the long-standing alliance between the three clans. It was too much, too many people, too much interaction. As the heir, it was expected of him, but it was a mind-numbing waste of time, and yet he had little to no choice. He accepted it, but couldn't people try to not be annoying? And what was with the sudden interest in his teammate anyway? Stop ignoring me, Shika. Don't call me Shika, troublesome blonde. You let Naruto call you Shika. And that would be between him and I. Fine, be that way. I was just trying to learn more about your teammate. Yeah, and I'm curious as to why. Why the sudden interest, you know? What do you really want? Because if this is just about gossip then you should drop it. It isn't about that. Not anymore, she thought. When we were at the academy I told Sakura not to be his friend, because he was bad. We were only 6, and I was going off what everyone said. I didn't know if it was true, but I thought I was doing the right thing. Why would I care about this? Because he does. I tried to talk to the new girls in his clan, and they knew me as the girl that chased his friend away, and wouldn't even entertain talking to me beyond that. Okay, so then there's nothing to do, Shikamaru said. He knew Naruto likely didn't care, the anecdote more of a reference point than anything else, but it wasn't his job to tell her that, nor did he really see any benefit to helping her. Ino, frankly, was selfish, vain and self-centered. She wrote Naruto off without knowing him and hadn't become interested until he was acknowledged as a clan heir. Shikamaru knew Naruto had a low opinion of a lot of Konoha's residents, and knew why. He couldn't blame his teammate, but also wouldn't encourage it. Ino being nakedly two-faced would only be another example, to add to the multitude. But I want to apologize, to start over. Shikamaru sighed. He had to be direct, Ino wouldn't get subtle, nor would she be led to a conclusion. It had to be blatant. Why? You didn't care when we formed our teams, you believed he was a loser with practically no evidence. Even when I told you that was wrong you didn't believe me. But now that he's a clan heir and shown some skills you want to make up. Just leave him alone, Ino. There will be plenty of people here. No reason to bother someone you wanted nothing to do with up to 5 minutes ago. So, that's it. I can't change. Can't try to make things right. No, because you haven't changed. Which is fine, no one cares, but don't make this out to be something it isn't. That's just too troublesome. Wow, way to be a friend, Shikamaru. Ino said in a huff. We're friends? Shikamaru asked, surprised Ino thought they were. Of course we are, we've known each other since forever. That doesn't make us friends. This is such a drag. Fine, then, Shikamaru. Since I'm so horrible I won't bother you, happy? Ino responded, hands on her hips. Not really. Asshole. You'll get over it. Ino wanted to respond, but saw the figures approaching Shikamaru and her, his teammates. Shino was dressed like the stereotypical Abiram, large jacket, black pants and shades. Naruto was wearing a red long-sleeve, V-neck shirt with black pants, and had his hair pulled back in a loose bun. She had to admit the off-maligned man bun worked on him. Hi, Shika. Naruto said with a wave, and then peered around him to see Ino there. Hi, Ino-san. Troublesome. Hello, Naruto-san. Shino. She greeted, a little taken aback at his cheerfulness. Naruto-san, can I speak to you for a moment? Sure. He responded and followed her away from his teammates. Seeing her look conflicted caused him to drop the formalities. What can I do for you, Ino? I want to apologize, Naruto, for telling Sakura not to be your friend. It was cruel and I thought I was doing the right thing. I'm sorry. Oh, has that been bothering you? Of course I forgive you, we were little then. Really? Yay. You don't think I'd hold a grudge from something a 6-year-old did to me, did you? Naruto asked with a grin. I wasn't sure. She said and felt much better. Well, I'm going to let you get back to Shikamaru, thanks Naruto. Ino spoke, walking away. No problem. Naruto called back, heading over to Shikamaru and Shino. Did you resolve your business with her? Yay, but it was weird. Anyway, how are you guys? I'm well, Naruto-san. How was your mission to Suna? Fine. Fought a little, ate a little, made some friends. Of course he did. Shikamaru muttered, causing Naruto to laugh. The trio prepared them some food and found a place away from the crowds, talking about their training, missions, and Shikamaru's long list of complaints. So, I have to get a new vest because of you, troublesome redeed. You could use a tighter fit anyway, you should fire your tailor, Shika. I know a guy. Shino offered helpfully, with Naruto giving him the thumbs up. See, Shino even knows a guy. Naruto paused to digest Shino's words before exploding. Why don't I know any guys? I won't let you get ahead of me, Abiram. But I already am. Why? As you have already stated, you have no guys. I have plenty and therefore will win. Are we really talking about this? Is this really happening? I must request you be silent. Shikamaru-san as Naruto-san is on the cusp of admitting his defeat. I admit nothing. Just you wait, I'll have guys and they will be of a superior quality than you guys. This argument is stupid. You both have to realize this. Shikamaru said and saw that neither of them were paying attention. Hey, you troublesome teammates, don't ignore me. You both always get into these weird competitions that don't matter. He started it, it was started by him, they both said. Anyone else would form a sweat drop, but even Shikamaru's sweat thought it was too troublesome. Can we get back to the topic at hand? No, Shikamaru-san, we cannot. Not until Naruto-san once again acknowledges his defeat. You cheated last time, Tabeo. And the time before that. The challenge was ambiguous. Naruto said, animatedly, hair flying in all directions. Troublesome, you submitted the challenge. How could you confuse yourself? Quite easily, I imagine. Shino answered with the barest hint of amusement. Abiram with the dagger. You're both bastards, you know that. What's that? I can't hear you from down there. Shikamaru retorted through yawns. Shika, you're lying down. Height doesn't even matter when you're lying down. Shino, you hear something. It sounds akin to a girlish shriek. Why? Because before a boy's balls drop they may have a high-pitched voice. Oh, so that's how you want to play it. Fine. I'm throwing a water whip party and you're both invited. Naruto said, eyes all white and hair formed into 9 tail-like formations. He instantly formed the water whips and gave chase to his teammates. May have pushed it too far this time, Shino. And running is so troublesome. Shikamaru observed while dodging Naruto's whips. Such is the price of victory, Shikamaru-san. Shino replied, narrowly avoiding a whip himself. Troublesome. It was late and he wanted to go home. He'd had a full and stressful day. It was always at this time he wondered if he should just give Tsunade the seat and be done with it. He could still shepherd them through the aim assault while ceding the day-to-day work to her. She might not like it, might fight tooth and nail, but it'd be worth it to get out of that seat. He wanted to go home, but fortune was not on his side. Have you lost the rest of that full mind of yours, Hiruzen? Kaharu, ignoring that I'm still the Hokage, what would lead you to talk to me like this? You assigning Anko a mission she, and I quote, is guaranteed to leave me gutted and rotting in an unmarked grave. Anko was being a bit hyperbolic. Besides, I'm sure you both agree with me that we can't let Orochimaru take Naruto-kun. She can be allowed to foster darkness within Minato's boy. Oh, he's Minato's boy now. And we actually take that into account. We don't need to have that argument tonight, Kaharu. Homura said, though he too disliked Hiruzen and manipulated them. They didn't want to deny Naruto his heritage, but were also concerned about his lack of protection in the wave of assassins that may come after Minato's legacy. To know that wasn't Hiruzen's only motivation offended both of them, but they'd yet to address it. There seemed to always be something more important to handle. Fine, we won't do that tonight, but Hiruzen, you are making a mistake. And worse yet, you're being obvious and sexist. Seeing his confused face, Kaharu continues, Anko is one of our best kunoichi, so you assign her a mission to fuck a child. You would never assign Kakashi to screw a 12-year-old girl, and we all know that. I didn't order her to have sex. Seduction doesn't have to end in sex. Even if she just made him fall in love, it'd be enough. Did she tell you why I wanted her to do it? Yes, and you're being irrational. Even if she did have designs on Naruto, that's not illegal, and we don't act against our shinobi without evidence of wrongdoing. We earned Danzo. Homura answered. Besides, why are you so convinced that she must have ill intentions for Naruto? Why bother coming back here, giving us full access to her own hidden village, if she has some dastardly plan? She may be arrogant, all of your students are, but she's not stupid, so why make this unnecessarily difficult? God knows, Naruto had more than enough incentive to leave the village. She wouldn't have had to try hard to induce him to do so. Because it would be her ultimate revenge against Minato and I, and is just the sick kind of poetic she likes. Hiruzen defended but saw Kaharu wasn't convinced, but Homura understood the man's words. Kaharu took notice of Homura's expression, and realized she was out of the loop. What are you telling me? Hiruzen breathed in deeply before releasing it with a sigh. For a brief period, Orochimaru and I were having an affair. I sent her to Danzo as a means of ending it, as an attempt to save my marriage, and a way of dealing with the guilt of coercing her into getting an abortion. Hiruzen didn't have to wait long for the slap that greeted his confession. So, you're one of them. I thought better of you, Hiruzen. I thought you had more integrity and discipline than that. I'm sorry I disappointed you, but nothing can change what happened, and it can't be used as a reason to turn a blind eye to her actions. No, but it does add context. I watched that girl grow up, her and Tsunade both. Well, not a direct sensei, I was proud to have helped in molding them into the stellar kunoichi they became. It hurt me just as much as you when she turned bad. It never made complete sense. She had darkness, she could be sadistic, but she always had control. Always. And then out of nowhere she becomes a monster. It never added up, until now. She and in turn the village paid for your wandering dick, Hiruzen. Yes, it has, and I want to rectify that. Don't you see why I need to limit her influence, all of her influence on him? I see an old man overreacting. Or do you just not like Naruto potentially getting something that was once yours? I'm not that crass, Kaharu. This isn't about some lingering possessiveness. Maybe not, but we don't see the wisdom in assigning Anko this mission. If you had more evidence or even a better argument, but are just being blindly spiteful won't do. And as one of the daimyo's stipulations, you know we can overrule you if we both agree. We do, Hiruzen, this mission is cancelled. Homura voice. You're both making a mistake. Only time will tell, but Hiruzen, did you ever stop to consider that maybe Naruto could be a good influence on her? Maybe bring back the loyal kunoichi she used to be? Kaharu asked. If he were older. Maybe, but he's still a child in many respects. And that child rallied a nation to fight for itself. He might surprise you, they both may if you give them a chance. She said as both advisors left, leaving the longest-serving Hokage to his own thoughts. But try as he may, he simply couldn't picture a version of this where Naruto didn't turn out for the worst. But guys, hope you enjoy and wait for the next part to come out.